Okay, so we are live on Facebook and recording is also started. Zia, please carry on.
Okay, we will start the class in a minute. Just let me share the screen. Hello everyone. We are going to today start covering the meat of solidity. Let me first share my screen. Adil, why don't you go ahead and share your screen? There's some issue with my screen sharing.
Sure. Do you want me to share the book, or what do you want me to share?
The book.
Can you see?
Yes. Could you change it to a single page?
Yes.
Now, what we are going to do is, because we are going to go into detail, this is the most important token which is used by almost all the projects. And this one combined with NFT are the cores of tokens on Ethereum blockchain. When we say ERC20 token, what do you mean by that? Anybody?
So
Before,
yes, so
Adil, you will reply after. I will give everybody a chance. Anybody else who wants to?
It's Ethereum request for comments, which is initially proposed as from Ethereum to comment on this. Like they wanted to have comments from the audience, what I believe. And after that, they finalized all the comments, and then now it is known as the standard ERC20. So basically, it is Ethereum request for comments.
Thank you, Basit. Anybody else?
Yes, sir. I would like to add something. So, in my opinion, like ERC20, it's basically a request that another fellow mentioned. But this is a kind of standard. So they made a standard. So all the projects or all the dApps we are working, what are working there, so they exactly know what to expect from a token. So a bunch of functions it has.
Adil?
yeah, what I understand for ERC is, so Ethereum is the blockchain and it has its own standardization. And to make modifications to that standardization, people can submit a ERC request, which will contain the new protocols, which can be anything. And ERC20 is the 20th version of that request, or the 20th request, which contains the fungible token that we are going to be looking at today.
Yeah, it's basically in sequence, just a name. so that and the request, and then they standardize it and improve it, continuously republish it and make it. Now let's move forward. Therefore, it's just a name. Maybe a serial number, you can say. Let's go ahead.
Yeah, the 20 is just a serial number.
Yeah.
Also, if I could just add another line there, it's probably, I believe, a set of standards that whoever is inheriting from or creating tokens should create those set of functions that every wallet must understand. So kind of common terminology or common set of functions that should comply with that standard, that everybody speaks the same language in terms of function names and arguments. So the tokens are compatible across different wallets.
Exactly. Exactly. Very nicely said. Now, the thing is, what we have to understand is, when I started studying blockchain and tokens, if you think about it, initially you think of a token as something separate, like a rupee note or a dollar note or a pence token. And I used to think that in the wallet, there's some kind of number which is stored in the wallet. Let me repeat it again. I used to think initially that just like you keep rupee in your wallet or a dollar in your wallet, that there is a dollar represented by some number or something which you keep in your wallet. That's not the case. When you open your wallet, it has a public address and a private key. On that public address, you basically store data in a database, which is a blockchain. Using that key, public key, and whichever data transaction you send to that blockchain, you basically sign your private key on it to make sure that everybody knows that this is an authenticated transaction. So therefore, in a wallet, you have a public key and a private key. Can somebody explain? We have already covered it in the previous classes, that what are public and private keys?
Public key is the address which you use or which you can share with other. The private key is basically the source key which generates the public key and which is used to unlock the public key address, the public address you have. So private key is like your PIN or signature, and public key is like your account number which you can give to the other people to send money or whatever. If you share your private key, then basically you are giving your wallet all the wallet assets in it. So your private key must be kept secret. It is used for SHA-256 algorithm, which is used in the encryption and decryption process of the Ethereum, of mainly the Bitcoin, and also in the other blockchain based technologies as well. So this is just basically private key is the way by which a wallet or your account can can consume the public key address, and another private key cannot open the open the accounts or related to the public key of another account. So this is something which is used for this. So basically is that public key is like your account number and private key are the signatures or the way to unlock that.
Actually, first of all, please somebody share the book on the chat. One of the students is requesting it. Somebody share the book on the chat. Now, the second thing is, you have to think about it. They have created a two-key system. Don't think of in terms of to understand it, don't think in terms of public and private key. It's a two key system. What you basically do is if you have two keys. If you encrypt it with one, you cannot, usually you will think that you will decrypt it with the same key. But what we are doing is basically if you encrypt it using one key, you can only decrypt it using the other key pairs. So therefore keys are created in pairs. And you have to think that there are two keys. So therefore, think about it. If you have a lock, you have two keys to the lock. If you close the lock with one key, you cannot open it with the same key. If you want to open it, you will open it using another key. So therefore, always the lock will have always two keys. Of course, we can now, if we have two keys, we can publish it. We can publish the public key. Now, anything we want to encrypt, we will encrypt it using the private key, and we will keep one key secret and we will make one key public. We encrypt it with using the private key and make the public key available to everyone, so that by decrypting it, everybody knows where the thing is coming from, where the transaction is coming from. And that public key also becomes your address. This two key system is not invented by blockchain people. It was present before this. It was discovered about mathematical discovery was about 25-30 years back. So this two key system. Now, they are in your wallet. You have your public key stored, and which you can share with anyone, which is your address, and you have a private key which you should keep safe. Now the problem is the tokens or coins are not like, as I mentioned, like as something you keep in your wallet. A wallet is nothing else except an interface for connecting to the database, which is called blockchain. A blockchain is an immutable database, which you can only add data, but you cannot change data. Think of it in these terms. Now, what we are going to do is, one is, there are two kinds of tokens or what do you call, which you can carry in your wallet. One are the coins and the other are tokens. Now, can anybody tell us what is the difference between a coin and a token?
Coins are related to the platform itself. They are the native currency of the platform itself. Tokens are like ERC20 based tokens are basically tokens are built on top of a platform. So in case of Ethereum, we usually have ERC20 tokens or ERC721 or ERC223 tokens. But to run the operations on a blockchain, you need native tokens for as a currency, native coins as a currency, like for gas limits, etc. The tokens are basically the asset you are selling, which are not the native assets. So they comply with the standards of the native of the blockchain itself standards. Coins are the currency which is required to have the operations being run on the platform itself.
Anybody else?
Sir, can we say that these tokens are contracts actually, and these contracts are used to exchange money, or we can buy or sell or exchange Ethereum on Ethereum network?
So a coin has its own blockchain while the token runs on somebody else's blockchain. If a token has its own blockchain, then we can call it a coin.
Basically the same as the colleague mentioned, that coin is basically the native token of any network that is used in the utility of anything on the same network. But the token is like a set of the standard, and it is not a basic like a native. You can say that it's a non-native token. It's like it's a standard. I think this is the only difference.
Yeah, so I think we can say coin is like the rupee of our currency, like that we use buy and sell things, and tokens are like shares or some sort of certificates which are representing some ownership of some value.
If a coin has its own blockchain, then we can call it a coin. But if a coin runs on somebody else's blockchain, then we can call it a token.
Adil?
Yeah, I think all of that is correct, right? So the examples are there on the screen as well. Like the Bitcoin blockchain, the coin there is Bitcoin. I don't think there's any tokens built on top of there, but on the Ethereum blockchain, you have Ether, which is the coin that's used, the native coin on top of that blockchain. And then that's used, like somebody mentioned earlier, for the gas fees and stuff. And then you can have the tokens that are created on top of that blockchain which are also used in smart contracts.
Yes, exactly. Now, if I ask you, for example, assume there was no Ethereum, and I wanted to create a token of my company called Penna Cloud. What will be required?
I think that without JavaScript, we are trying to code in React. It's impossible.
Let me repeat my question. Maybe I didn't make it clear. I'm saying, assuming there was no Ethereum and there were no tokens. When Bitcoin came out, there was no Ethereum and there were no smart contracts. If I wanted to create my own coins, let's say Penna Cloud coins, what will be required? What would I be required to do in order to create my own coin and sell it?
I think we should write the own blockchain.
Please, Barif, one by one, please.
Okay.
Yes, Bilal.
Sir, in my opinion, I think we should write your own blockchain.
Yes. Yes. Anybody else?
Yep, same. Your own blockchain.
Basically, two things: a way to record the transactions in a way that everybody will trust it. The other one is to have a mechanism or a standard of generating the identities or so that we can have correctly identify the owner of the asset or correctly identify the ownership transfers of the assets. So we will need a recording mechanism and a generating mechanism, which basically the job of the ledger.
Anybody else?
So other than that, if you only wanted to raise some capital, then you might have considered some stock exchange or IPOs as well.
Yes, but I'm talking about creating a coin. So therefore, anybody else, Adil?
So then you have to create, I think, your own blockchain and own token, because when there is no facility of writing a smart contract.
All of you are missing a point. All of you are missing a point. Let's see what Adil says.
Yeah, well, the blockchain would be the basic requirement. You'll have to come up with your own way of storing the data and then your own standard protocols as well, like Ethereum has done with the ERC20 and stuff. So number one, the blockchain with the method of storing data, and then also with the coin, how will you be creating the coin, the rules for creating the coin, and then also how will you trade the coin as well.
Let's assume, just a question food, let's assume that I just clone the Bitcoin code. It's open source.
You also need the network, right? You need the network. Where will you host it?
Exactly. That's what I was trying to point out. That what you will require is that I can clone and make minor changes, just change the name, Bitcoin, and make it Penna Cloud Coin. And but the problem with that is that I will need to have nodes, validators, and rest of the stuff. This is a huge task. I need 2,000-3,000 validators who will be running my blockchain and minimum and validating the transactions and the rest of the stuff. Everybody got it? Should we move forward? Or any comments?
Yes, please, sir. Move forward.
Therefore, issuing your own coin, unless you are a big company with big marketing, and the another thing problem, all the wallets will then have to learn to communicate with your, all the exchanges have to learn to communicate with your blockchain. So Ethereum basically solved this. Ethereum what does is, what is common, it abstracts that in the Ethereum blockchain, and the single blockchain is running, and the smart contracts on it. You can write your customized coins or whatever you want, which they call smart contracts. So therefore, it is a beautiful abstraction. And what they have done is that most of the code is common, and the customized code goes into smart contract, and one type of smart contract is ERC20 tokens. Yes.
One main other issue will be the trust. If we want to have our own token without a public blockchain, then we will be essentially relying on other people to trust us. That's the major problem with issuing our own token on our own platform. But if we are issuing a token on a public platform or public blockchain, then the trustless condition will be met, which is essential for any blockchain token or Ethereum token.
Exactly. So now everybody now understands that what tokens provide us. They provide us, tokens are nothing but smart contracts. It's a program which is running on Ethereum blockchain. Most of the common code is run by the Ethereum blockchain. Only the smart contract is our own code, which we add to that, and basically that runs. Now let's move forward. There are two types of exchanges where we can exchange our tokens: centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges. What is the but before we go to that, I have another question. Is Ethereum a ERC20 token?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Why not?
Sir,
Because it is not following the standards of ERC standard token. It has more than this.
Because of that, Ethereum is a blockchain, and you said that, what I understand, tokens are upper layer on the blockchain. So Ethereum is a blockchain, and tokens are upper layer of the any blockchain.
Okay. Now let's see. Adil, do you have anything to add on this?
Well, yeah, so the Ethereum is the platform, right? So Ethereum gives you the ability to create the ERC20 tokens, in addition to all the other ERC methodologies that can exist. So it can't follow its own subset of protocols, right? It's the one providing the platform that you can use to create those protocols.
Now, this is very important point, because most people do not understand this. Ethereum, think of it this thing. If I want to say, please give 5 ethers, I don't want to give Adil 5 ethers. I want to ask Adil to send me 5 ether. Why should I give it to him? And he'll give it to me. So if I ask Adil to send me 5 ether, what he will do is call the Ethereum blockchain APIs, which will be a hash table where we will say that I had 20 ethers, he's a rich guy, 50 ethers. Of that, he will send me to my address 5 ethers, and he's calling the API of the blockchain, Ethereum blockchain. But if I am calling a smart contract, I want transferring a ERC20 token, I will be calling a method on the smart contract. which basically will say that transfer 5, let's say, Penna Cloud coins. Adil sends 5 Penna Cloud coins to Zia. They are two completely different things. So therefore, in one case, you are calling the API of the blockchain. In the other case, you are calling the API of the smart contract. They are totally different. Now let's get back to our main point. Centralized exchange and decentralized exchange.
Sir,
Who will explain?
please, sir, please repeat this. I'm a little bit confused, sir.
Adil?
Yeah, so what he means to say is that within Ethereum, there's the two assets, right? You have the Ether asset, which is the native coin on the Ethereum blockchain, so the Ether, and then the token that's created on top of it, which could be any ERC20 token. So when you trade those two, a coin versus a token, you deal with completely different APIs. So when you trade a Ether, you deal with the blockchain APIs that are directly on the Ethereum blockchain. So you're sending the Ether coin, and the receiver is receiving it, right? But when you're trading a token, you don't call the blockchain APIs, you call the APIs that are within that smart contract.
So basically, what I understand, when we call the contract API, behind that they are also called the blockchain API. Is that correct? Of the native token.
Bilal, don't think of in these terms. You will get confused. Make it easy on yourself. What you think about is there are two different books, accounting books. In one book, you keep tab of all the ethers owned by everyone. This is a book which is connected to the blockchain. And there is a single book in the entire Ethereum ecosystem. And whenever Zia has to and transfers to Adil, you make entries in that book. This is the blockchain book, accounting book. There's another accounting book which is a ERC20 token. In that ERC20 token, you basically can transfer money token, which I have myself created. And in that book, it is written which token belongs to whom and how many tokens belong to that person. So think in these terms, there are two separate books. Actually, they are not two. They are actually unlimited. One is the blockchain book and the other one is ERC20 token books for each token. So therefore, if there are 10,000 tokens, there are 20,000 books, 10,000 books, accounting books for each token, and one book, accounting book for the Ethereum token. Not the Ethereum, sorry, Ethereum coin. Hopefully I got through.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you. I understand, sir.
Bilal bhai, thank you. Now what we are going to do is, we have to understand something. This is going to change everything. It's already a single, Pakistanis don't understand it, most of them. We have been, Adil, when we started, me, you and Zishan started in Axiom, how long it was? 4 years? 5 years?
I think 2017, 5 years, almost 5 years.
We have been talking about it for 5 years and most people don't understand it. It has already crossed $3 trillion. Right now, some developers are making $750,000 a year. Adil, how much money Pakistani rupee is that?
I think what almost 15 crores, something like that, something near that area.
I don't understand people, Pakistanis. If I was a student, I would be doing this and nothing else. Is there any way for making $750,000 in any other way? And also contributing to humanity? You can, of course, steal it.
Yeah,
but
I was
first
gonna
of all,
say you can rob a bank.
That's what I'm saying. You can rob a bank, but that is dangerous and not ethical also. And you will not feel good about it in the end. This is the only way of making huge amount of money and also contributing to the society because you are innovating. But most Pakistanis don't understand it because they will have to work for it. They want to, of course, Pakistanis are basically, most Pakistanis are basically doing speculation and more than 20 billion. But we are not talking about speculation. What we are talking about is creating new products on Web3 protocols. Now let's say, what's the difference between centralized exchange and decentralized exchange?
Yeah, so centralized exchanges are exchange where people trade, but they are controlled by a single authority. But decentralized exchange are those which are controlled by the community, not by the single authority.
So the
Anybody else?
basically decentralized exchange is a DAO, like a decentralized autonomous organization. They don't need anybody or any entity to operate it, but they have their voting rights. Whatever the vote the community puts in favor of anything, then it runs in such a way. And one thing more, if you need to launch a token, that you need permission in centralized exchange, but it didn't decentralized exchange, you don't need any permission to launch a token. I think these are the two main.
Also have the in the centralized exchange, the exchange holds the coins or the tokens instead of your wallet. So in the decentralized exchange, you take control of holding your assets until you decide to change. And when you trade, it goes from your wallet directly to the other person's wallet without going through the exchange. So the trust issues better with the decentralized exchange.
Yes. Basically the difference is in the centralized exchange, example Coinbase. Can anybody give another example? Very famous one.
Binance is there, sir.
Finance.
The thing is, you transfer your Ethereum to Binance. Binance owns it. And it is very dangerous. For example, if Binance goes bankrupt or basically somebody steals from their wallet, your money is gone. In decentralized exchanges, you keep in your own wallet. But most people don't know how to use wallets. Therefore, they prefer centralized exchanges. And they are betting their life on something which basically they're trusting Coinbase or Binance. I wouldn't do it for the large amounts. For small, it is okay. But for large accounts, if you are a millionaire, it will be very dangerous. Let's move forward. But if you don't know, centralized exchanges are much easier. In decentralized, you can make mistake. That's also a problem. Anyway, let's move forward. Now, the next question is, imagine this. Yes, Sumbul?
Sir, I have one question, that every transaction is recorded on blockchain. So if I'm stealing some money, then it should also be recorded. So it is very easy to verify that who has stolen that money.
Adil?
You'll have the address, right? But you won't know who it is. That's the main thing.
Can I contribute?
Anybody else?
Yes, sir. Basically, when anybody steal your private key, they own at that time your wallet. How would it know who is he? He. Because he knows your private key, they can do anything. So it is possible.
The thing
Yeah,
is,
the transaction is signed with your private key, right? So how can you argue who made the transaction as well?
Yeah, exactly. Ledger show that you make a transaction.
I think somebody, please silent your mic. Somebody background is coming through. Yes, Adil, you were saying something, or Bilal?
I think
So
we both made the same point, that when you make a transaction with your private key as a signature, only you are able to know the private key. So how it's a debate, right? Like if even if somebody else has your private key, they're not supposed to have it. So you have to take responsibility there.
So the whole point is that if somebody basically does something bad, the money will be transferred. And in some cases, you can figure out who that wallet belongs to. But in some, because if he has done a lot of other transactions, you will be able to track him. But if he has used it very sparingly and a very few transactions, it will be very difficult to track that person, who that person was. You will know the address. And then you can also track where he is spending his money. So therefore, eventually you can get caught. But there are some people who are doing it very smartly, but eventually they get caught. But even in real life, that happens, that most of the time they get caught.
But sir, there's one question in my mind. When we open an account in a centralized exchange, then we go through the KYC process. So we provide any identity, like a national identity there. So I think any address which is interacting with the centralized, they must have provided any kind of the documents. So isn't it possible to track
Yes.
that?
If they are coming from a centralized exchange, we will be able to track them. But if they are coming from their private wallet, it will be more difficult.
Okay, thank
you. Now let's move forward. What is this word crowdfunding? It will completely change the industry. You can also create a crowdfunding. What it is? Can somebody explain?
Yeah, sir, crowdfunding means raising funds from general public, from a crowd, and in exchange of tokens. For example, if we have this, if we want to offer, if we want to raise money for Pana Cloud, then what we can do a crowdfunding, which literally means we are offering our tokens to public in exchange for the native token, native coin like Ethereum. So we can use them for our building something.
Adil?
Yes. So like if you compare it to the other, like the stock market, for example, like normally when companies are founded, you can have like angel investors or something that will give you like $1 amount to as like a seed funding to build your product. And then in exchange for that, they get shares in the company, right? And then you can go into the further rounds of investments and then eventually end up doing like an IPO. So you do a crowd sale in that market would be like an IPO when you first hit the masses. With this blockchain technology, since the crowd is available on the blockchain as well, you can bypass that entire angel investment, VC investment, and go directly to the crowd and offer them tokens in exchange for investment into the company.
Okay. So therefore, basically, there are different ways of doing it. Either you are basically doing your own thing and you are may have your website and you we will cover that in chapter number 9. So therefore, basically raising funds using a lot of different small investors. That's the whole idea. Let's move forward. Now let's look at the ERC standard APIs. Please scroll a little bit down, Adil.
Yeah, so these are the standard APIs that are built into an Erc20. I think we can go off to the next section.
Yes, please go. I can so that we can see the whole thing.
Oh, you want to see all the see all the functions?
Yes.
Okay.
That's enough. Now let's go over it one by one. We are going to cover optional the first 3 methods. the first three functions are optional. We are going to discuss them later. But if you, just to sum up, if you define a name variable, what Ethereum compiler does is that if you define a name variable, public or external variable, public variable, it will create an access method itself by itself. So therefore, you don't have to write the functions name, symbol, and decimal yourself. What you have to do is just create a name, write a variable, state variable. What is a state variable? There are two kinds of variable. One is a function variable and the other one a state variable. What is a state variable? In object-oriented programming, it's not related to Solidity. It applies to every object-oriented programming language.
Class variable, the variable.
Yes, state variables are basically class variables, and methods, of course, and functions have their own variables, which are only restricted and their only scope is in that method. State variables are global in the sense in the whole class, all the functions in the class can access that variable. Yes.
In Solidity means they are stored on the contract storage as well. Whereas the local variables aren't, or the function variables aren't stored on the contract storage. That's another difference in the Solidity.
Yes, yes. I was talking about generally, but specifically to Solidity, you are correct. Now, so therefore, the compiler basically creates it. If we define three variables, name, symbol, and decimals, it will create the public accessory method themselves. The compiler will create the method themselves. Now let's move forward. If I want to transfer money from one user to another user, I will call transfer. Now tell me the transfer methods. My first question is, the transfer method has only address to, which is the address of the person which the money is going to. This is the token. It's not Ethereum. The token which is going to. And the value of unsigned 256, a very big number. So let's say I will send 10 Pena Cloud coins to your address. So I will call this transfer. But how will the method know that it is, I am sending it to others' address? How will the method know?
Message.sender.
Please
we will
again.
use message.sender. We will use message.sender. It will pick up the owner of the who is calling the function. He will get the address of that person.
Exactly. In the method, there are some global variables defined. One, Haris, are you saying anything?
Sir, I have said that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, somebody has a bird which is also listening to this class. Anyway, so therefore, if you highlight transfer method, Adil. In the transfer method, if I call the transfer method, in message, there will be a variable called message, which dot address, message.sender. It will contain my address. The address of the person I'm sending to will be contained in 2, and the value I'm sending will be in value. And it will return true if the amount is successfully transferred. And what it will do is basically in accounting, you basically keep a record of which address the money is flowing from and to. There is a second method, which is very important, is balance off. Go to the next page. The first method, balance off. What does it do?
If someone authorized some person to transfer token on his behalf, then this function will tell us the how much he is authorized.
No,
No,
no.
this is
Sir,
the one.
It will tell the
Yes, Rahman.
it will tell the balance of the person, like how much it
Yes.
has.
Sorry, yeah. The balance table.
Balance, you will give the address of that wallet, and it will give you how much balance that person has.
Yeah.
Again, I repeat, this is not Ethereum balance. This is the token balance. That's the difference. Now, we have up to now learned two methods. One is transfer, one is balance off. When you transfer, it will also fire an event. Please highlight that second last event. This transfer, what it will do is basically this event will be fired. It doesn't do anything. It creates a database of index, it records it. And if you're listening to it, you will be informed that this transfer has been made. Maybe your UI, user interface, will listen to the event. And then you will know that the amount has been transferred. So we have learned three things: transfer, balance off, and transfer event. There is a third important thing, is total supply. This is the amount of total tokens being owned by everyone. So these are the four methods. Adil, could you revise these four methods? Then we'll move forward.
Yeah, sure. So the first one you went over was the transfer method. We use that to transfer a token from one address to another. The sender address is not included because you can calculate that from the message.sender. You can provide the address you're sending to and then the value of how much you'll send, and it will return a true or false. The other one we went over is the balance of, to find out how much balance an address has, how much tokens are there. The transfer event is fired when we complete a transfer to record that the transfer has happened and to notify downstream applications that a transfer has taken place. And the total supply will return how many total tokens are in circulation.
So therefore, if you think about it, these four methods and the top three optional methods are good enough. You can get, most of the time, you'll get a buy with these methods. But there is a problem. Not a problem. They wanted to add another functionality, which is that if Adil has 100 Ethereum, he gives me allows me to spend 10 of those, 10%. I'm also Mr. 10%. So therefore, he'll allow me to use 10%. Now, if he has 100 Ethereum, and if he wants to allow me to use 10 Ethereum whenever I want, what he will do is he will call the approve method. Adil will call the, could you highlight that approve method? Adil will call the approve method and give my address in spender and the value which is will 10, and 10 of the PanaCloud tokens I can spend. Now, how do I spend it? I will use the method transfer from, and in the from I'll use the Adil's address and to some girl in Sweden, and I'll spend my entire 10 PanaCloud coins to her in Sweden. So therefore, transfer from address Adil to address, and in message.sender will be my address, which has already been allowed by Adil. So therefore, I can transfer from Adil's account to another account. Now, if I want to check before sending the money that even did Adil actually send me the money, so I will call the announce method. I will call the announce method to basically say that did Adil in the owner and in the address spender will be my address, and it will show me how much allowance had Adil given me. And after that, I'll send transfer form and send it to Sweden. When Adil basically approves it, the approve event will be called, approval event will be called the last event. So this is a ERC20 token is a quite a. Now, can you basically anybody explain the entire approval process? How can you basically use money for somebody else's money?
Yes, I can.
Yes, go ahead, please.
So basically, what we do is with the approve and the transfer from function, whenever we go to the Uniswap exchange, it's a decentralized exchange. And if we want to swap some token from one token to another, then we approve the tokens to the Uniswap address, and then he will call the transfer from function. What Uniswap will do is he will transfer the tokens from my address to someone else's address, and there's the process of transfer from functionality.
Yes. Anybody else? Adil?
I'm sure. So we can use this for we can use this in services as well, right? If you need to make some payments, for example, if I get some service from my internet provider, maybe I can use the approve function in a contract to approve how much total I will owe them. When they need to collect, they can call the transfer from and because they can send the money to themselves as well through the transfer from. They can use the allowance to check how much I have approved, whether or not I've met the services contract, and then whenever they do a transfer from, at the end of that, it'll post the approval event, and that will be used in their applications as well.
Anybody else? Any questions?
It can be used for exchange application as well. If you want to have a centralized exchange, or we can use an agent or broker application. So we can use this type of mechanism there as well.
Exactly.
Is this like the pay order scenario?
Sir, can you check how tokens have you spent? How many tokens do you have?
Please go ahead. We are not able to understand what you were saying, Rahman. Okay, let's move forward.
Is this an pay order scenario type thing?
Yes. Actually, everything is peer-to-peer.
The pay order type, like when we buy a car, we create a pay order on the bank and give to the company. When the car is delivered, the payment is delivered to the company. Am I right, sir?
I didn't understand the question. Adil, did you understand the question?
I didn't.
Above explanation about the transfer of the money in ERC20 tokens, is scenario like the pay order in real world? Can I say that?
Pay order is basically a instruction to pay. This is the allowance thing, which you are allowing somebody to use your money. Pay order is an instruction for the bank to pay somebody some money.
I guess you could use this you could use this in place of a pay order. If you give them allowance to collect the money, they can collect it into their own wallet.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, thank you,
for,
thank you.
for every exchange or website, they need the approval from the users. If you don't approve your tokens, then some exchange or website can transfer the tokens directly from your wallet to their wallet. So in case we always need approval to transfer the tokens to someone else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now
Sir,
let's
I
move
want to
forward.
add- Sorry.
Yes, go ahead,
I
please.
want to add one thing. Sir, there's one problem with the transfer function. See, like if, when, for example, we are like right now 21 people in this class, and there is someone.
I can't understand anything.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello. Am I
Better.
audible? Okay. So like right now we are 21 people in this class, and for example, there's a smart contract. We all want to send it some tokens. Then smart contract would have no idea like who have sent how much. So that's why transfer from function comes very helpful. So we approve and contract pull itself. So this is one good example, I think.
Okay, now let's start talking about the implementation thing. In Erc20 implementation, the book code basically use safe math library. But now with the latest versions, you don't need safe math. So therefore, what I have done is basically given the code to you without using the safe math library. You don't need to use it anymore. It was initially used it in the previous versions. We just have to forget about the safe math library is not required anymore. Now let's go over and go to the next page. Now let's see how they implement it. They have, it is a mapping is nothing but a hash table with key and value pairs. So therefore, mapping, you create a variable, an internal variable, which has an address, and the value is an unsigned integer, 256 integer. So therefore, you can basically, it stores all the balances of everyone. So therefore, what we will do is, if my address has 10 Panacloud tokens, Adil addresses has 50 Panacloud tokens, all of them will be stored in these balances variable. This will be a state variable, a class variable, which will be accessible from all methods, either the contract or the contracts that inherit it. And when we transfer it, when we transfer money from using transfer or transfer from, it will basically use this mapping to transfer money. Therefore, now start, I hope you start understanding. In blockchains, and especially Ethereum blockchains, there are no coins. You don't have anything in your wallet. You just have the public and private key. All the data is stored on the blockchain. And it will be stored in this variable. So therefore, when you are looking at your wallet and seeing that you have 10 Panacloud coin tokens, that just means that they have called the balance of method and found out what is the balance, my balance. They know, the wallet knows my public address. And basically on the smart contract, that's why there are millions of smart contracts, hundreds of thousands of smart contracts. So therefore, in your wallet, you will have to add the address of the smart contract you are interested in. So therefore, first you add the contract address, and then automatically shows the balance by calling the balance of method. Now you understand? Because I used to think that something is contained in the wallet. Nothing is contained in the wallet. Everybody understand this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Let's move forward. As I said, balance of method will give you the answer. For example, look at this thing. Owners and the balances. Your wallet contains nothing. You just show it, give the address of the contract, and it will go and ask the balance of whatever your address is. And then using that address, it will tell you what's your balance. That's it. So all data is stored on the blockchain. There is another variable, which is a mapping of a mapping, which is basically allowed. The previous was the balances. In this allowed, you basically say that Adil address and my address and the amount he has allowed me. So if he has allowed 20 people, so Adil will have 20 entries in this mapping with 20 different addresses and amounts. Can you explain, Adil, the diagram?
Yes, so I can connect the diagram to this table as well. So here the owner is the person who owns the 100 tokens, and this person has allowed a second person access to 50 of those tokens. So this is done through the mapping shown here. So the address of this owner will be in the first mapping here, and then that will be mapped to the address of the person with the permission, and as well as the amount. And then this person would be able to do the transfer from function to transfer the money from the initial account.
On the top it says he can only also transfer it to himself.
Yes, exactly. And then in a more quantifiable way to see it is like this, where one person has, so this is the same address in the from field, and that person has granted two different addresses access to different amounts of money. So 250 here and then 1,000 here. So and overall this address has allowed 250 tokens to be transferred for this wallet address, and then 1,000 for this address, for example.
Yes. So up to now, we have seen that we have two variables, state variables or class variables. The first one was the balances, which was a mapping, and then a mapping of mappings, which was allowances. Let's move forward.
They messed up on the numbers here, because here they're trying to allow 1,250, but in the first chart they said there's only 1,000.
And they made a mistake. Let's move forward. Then there is a third variable called total supply of tokens. And as soon as you write total supply, the method will be, if you give it a public name, instead of internal, you just give it a total supply public, it will create access method. Not only a read method, not a write method, automatically generated, the compiler. The total supply will give you and return you total supply of the tokens. Let's move ahead.
This one was interesting also. When you do a public method here, then it creates the view automatically. That
yes.
was interesting.
As we have already discussed, can you, Adil?
Sure. So this is the transfer function to transfer tokens from one address to another. So we can look at the code here to answer that one question you asked before. How do you get the address of the sender? Because the function only asks the address of the receiver. So here you can get the like this message.sender will be the initiating address. What this function is doing, it's first making sure that the value that's being sent the balance of that initial wallet is able to transfer that amount of tokens. So if I'm trying to send you 10 tokens, do I even have 10 tokens to begin with? That's the first check. The second check it's doing is if it's sending it to a actual address. I don't think this validates that the address exists. It just makes sure that it's not address 0, because
Yes.
then it will be burning the token, right?
Yes.
So these two are the checks this transfer function is doing. Number one, that the money exists to be able to send in the first place. And then second, you're not burning it. And then after that, it updates the balance. So it's doing a minus of the sender balance and adding it to the receiver's balance. And then at the very end, it emits that transfer event we talked about earlier to notify all the downstream applications that this transfer is completed.
I just wanted to point out in the latest code, if you look at my code in the repository, you don't have to use sub and add. This is safe math library method.
This is a safe math.
Just use a normal minus sign.
Right.
You just don't need to do that. We don't want to go into detail and waste our time. Therefore, this code is correct. Most of it, except for the sub and add, we will change that to minus and plus. Let's move forward. We have also already discussed this in detail, difference between Ether and token transfer functions. But let's go over it again. But before we do that, let's, in the bold, they have said require transfer. In order to transfer Ether from one, they are saying is please put it in require. The good thing is if it fails, it will fail completely and your gas will not be wasted. Therefore, saying if you're in the contract, you are transferring tokens to somebody else, always put it in require. Now, what's the difference between Ether and token transfer functions? Adil?
Yeah, so this is where when we
just
started.
a second. Anybody else? Anybody else?
Yes, sir. So the ERC20 transfer is for tokens, and if we want to transfer tokens, then we use that function. But if we want to transfer ethers, then we have to use a different function, which has the same name but different algorithm.
Yes. Yes. Adil?
Yes. Yeah, so this was exactly what he just said, that like we discussed earlier, that there's multiple books. One is the book for the main blockchain for the Ethereum, where the Ether is accounted for. So one transfer method is for that, the one ledger where the Ether is accounted. So if you want to transfer Ethereum, Ethers actually, and then this other transfer function we just talked about in the ERC protocol is when you're transferring tokens from one address to another. So that's the other book for that particular ERC token.
One thing you have to note is in the first code, we are basically casting the address to address. In the latest solidity, you will have to cast it to address space payable in order to call the transfer method. So therefore, you basically use any address and basically cast it to address payable and basically send the money in the latest after 8.0. And in this, basically you cast it to ERC20 token address, a contract address, and then call a transfer method. And it will in the to address an amount, and the receiver will also receive message.sender your address also. Let's move forward. Now Now, what is he saying when he's saying transfer, token transfer, do not notify the contract? Does not notify the contract.
Yeah, so I think its meaning is when somebody transfer some ERC20 tokens to a contract, then it will get it, but it will there will be no event triggered at that time, and yeah, this is the thing I think.
Like no one will be get notified that whether you have received any ERC20 or no. This is what I believe it is.
The thing is, if you are transferring Ether, there is a fallback method which basically is called. You have no method which receives money. Ethers, money, not money. Money is everything. Ether is money and tokens are money. For example, if I'm transferring Ether to Adil, what will happen is, and there are no methods in that contract which receives Ether. The fallback method will be called and Adil will be notified that he has received Ether. But if I am sending some tokens to that contract address, there will be no fallback method called. You will never know unless you go and check whether that contract has money, that has tokens. Is that understood, please?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's
And this
move
is why
forward.
this is why you have the transfer event notification, right? You can use that to notify.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, then you will have to be listening, but the contract is not listening.
I need to ask one question, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
Are contracts capable of handling ERC20 tokens? Like if I send my ERC20 tokens to any contract, that contract will be capable to handle that? Because what I believe is that handling ERC20 tokens, all the mechanism is implemented at wallet level. So any externally owned address can handle it. So whether contract can also handle it?
You are saying that if I send a contract, some money to a contract,
Some ERC20 tokens.
yes, to a contract, can it handle it?
Yeah.
The thing is, you have to understand, if I have a contract address and I'm sending money to, basically I'm using, and think about it, we have two contracts. First contract has an address, let's say A. There's a second ERC20 token, a contract which is B, contract B, and I basically call that contract and send the tokens to A. Of course, B will record that A address has this tokens, but it will not notify A. That's what we were discussing. And in the second, tokens can be locked. If you send the tokens to contract B, the token was also B, and you send the money, send the token to B, what will happen is it will be locked, because in a ERC20 token, there are no methods to get the money out of it. If you write a method to get money out of it and send it somewhere else, then it's okay. Otherwise, the tokens will remain there, because there are no methods to send the money directly without calling the transfer. Outside people can call transfer. You will have to write your own methods of transferring it to yourself or somebody else.
Sir,
So
we
at
use
contract
this
level, we have
technique
to
in
implement.
staking.
One by one, please.
At contract level, we have to implement some transfer functionality if we want to transfer token from a contract to somewhere else.
Yes. Otherwise, it will be locked.
Thank you,
in that contract.
Sir, we use this technique in staking contracts. We
Yes.
lock that coins in staking contract, and we can
Yes.
transfer that function. So
Exactly.
exactly.
Haris. Very smart of you. Open Zeppelin ERC standard implementation. This will be discussed in chapter 9. They provide standards, exact implementation code also. Right now, we are not discussing it because we are just trying to understand ERC20 tokens and how they function. Now, if I transfer Ether, this is be shown by the etherscan.io. Now notice this. It is saying basically you're transferring Ether, not tokens, Ether. So it's saying basically you have transferred 14.7 Ether from address 07F to address FE001. I'm just showing it. 2. This is basically you have transferred Ether directly. But now let's look at the next. In this, you are looking at the token, you send the token contract. Can somebody explain what's the difference between the two? What's the difference in the second one?
Yes, sir. So in the second one, it is showing token transfer from to and also mentioning the symbol of the token. But in the previous one, it just mentioned from this to that address.
Exactly. Adil?
Yeah, so in the previous one, you have the two addresses directly transferring the Ethereum. Here, the contract is involved. So when you send the tokens, you send it through the contract. So in the from address, it shows your address, and then the to address, it shows the address of that smart contract, and then you've defined the address where you're actually sending the tokens to. So that's defined in the tokens transferred to here.
Exactly. And there's another thing difference.
And the value of Ether is 0, and you have
Yes.
the token value here.
Yes, exactly. Now, another thing is to notice, go to the previous one. In the last sentence, they are saying the transaction data was sent empty because you are just sending Ether from one party to another and there are no transaction data. You are not calling a method. Go down. Here in the transaction data, please a little bit more. Look at this thing. It contains signature of the transfer method function because you are calling a function. And all this data will be in the transaction data. You don't need to go over it in detail, but just to point it out. Just move forward.
Sir, can I ask one question, please?
Yes, Abdul.
I wanted to know that how we can check the token balance of a contract. Like if there are ethers, then we can check address this dot balance. So how we can check that how many tokens this contract have?
We already covered that by looking at
total
yes,
supply.
not
supply.
Supply. No. Let's go back to the function method. Go back.
He's asking about how many tokens are there, right? In total.
Yes.
That's
not
the
in total. He's asking, how will you know what is my balance? So there is a method called balance.
Balance of?
Yes.
No. Actually, I think I didn't put my question right. So I wanted to know that I transfer tokens to a contract. And now I want to check that what is the balance of like tokens within my contract. Is there any way, like if I send an ether to a contract, I can check the ether balance with address this dot balance. So it will give me specific balance of that.
Here you will call the method balance of and give the contract address in who?
A balance of will be called in that parent, in parent contract. Like it is the functionality of that.
And so how will the receiving party does not store it unless you write a contract yourself which is storing it. You can write your own contract and do whatever you want.
Okay. No, I was asking just in a sense that, when it is transferred to any EOA, your wallet will always show that how many balance of these tokens you have.
Yes.
So I thought there might be any functionality within the contract as well.
No.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, I have one more question.
If you think about it, just a point from the last point. When wallet is also calling the same thing, it doesn't know by default. Wallet is also calling the same method, balance of. You can, in your contract, you can call balance of another contract to find out what the balance is.
Yeah, got it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Basil. Yes, somebody else had a question.
Yes, sir. I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Actually, sir, I have a question that if one smart contract has some token, then why we need to import token always? Like I am working on Web3 for the interaction with smart contract. So I always import token from, for example, in our software house, we are working on Ali token. This is actually Alethea.ai, which is bringing NFT to like somewhat, but every time I have to import token. So where is this store? Even my transaction hash does not include it.
Sorry, I didn't understand. Adil, did you understand the question?
No. Sir, actually, I am saying that in MetaMask, we always have to import tokens from another.
Yes, now I got to get you. That's what why do we have to import it? Because there are hundreds and thousands of tokens. Which smart contract is your wallet listening to ask the question balance of? Unless you give the address of the contract, how he's not going to go and ask every contract on the blockchain what is the balance. He's only going to ask in the case you are observing that contract. So therefore, you have to give the address of the contract. Then he will ask. Then the wallet will ask the Metaverse will ask the blockchain, what is the balance? What is my balance?
Sir, then how do we know that I have any other tokens or not? How can I check? And
the thing is, if somebody is telling you, somebody loves you so much and sending you tokens which you want, you will maybe Etherscan. You can find out if somebody is sending you token with your address. Other than that, I can't see how will wallet know.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sir, can I ask a question?
Of course.
In case of transfer from function, for example, if I assign a person that he can spend on my behalf some 50 to 100 tokens. So first of all, if I am the owner, so the tokens would be transferred from my account to his account, and then he can spend, or the tokens would directly be transferred from my account to the target account.
If you approve it, you can directly transfer.
No, for example, if I am the owner, if I assign a spender, for example, if I allow a spender to spend 20 tokens on my behalf, and if he sends that token to another account, so the transaction would be directly from my account to the receiver's account, or first of all the tokens would be transferred to the spender account, and then is from the spender to be transferred.
It will go directly.
Okay, thank you.
Remember the diagram which we saw?
Yes.
Yes. Therefore, we already covered this. The thing is, first we call approve. Then approved event is thrown. Then you can check if somebody has given you allowance by calling the allowance method. And the last method is transfer from. You can transfer from once you have checked that you have that allowance. You can transfer from. Basically, we have covered this.
This is updating that mapping we saw earlier.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Now, who will explain? Who is that you can have a front running attack on the approval function if your code is not. That is why I'm telling you soon in 2022, the smart contract developers will be making more than $1 million a year. Because if he is an idiot, if you want to, up till now, if you hired an idiot developer, what will be the problem? Most probably because you are using it in efficiency applications, there will be some bug and it will crash and you will lose some money. But in blockchain, you will go bankrupt if you had a stupid developer. So therefore, the good developers will be making $1 million and nobody will allow you to touch their code if not a good developer, if you don't have a reputation. So Adil is in America, so therefore he will be making $2 million and then sending money to all Pakistanis. Eid to us on Eid day.
Only the good ones.
Yeah, only the good ones. But another thing is, doesn't matter. If you are a good developer in Pakistan or America or wherever you are living in this new age, doesn't matter. You have to be good at your work. Now, what is this front-running attack?
Yes, sir. I want to explain it, sir.
Yes,
sir,
please.
So there's one problem that we have learned about approval and transfer from function, but there can be some cases where are some problem. So that problem could be, for example, I approved you some tokens so you can spend it on my behalf. So, but later you were telling me, Ali, this is not enough. Please approve more. So while I'm approving more, you can go and transfer those tokens that I already approved before and transfer them. And now once I approve, once again, you can transfer even more tokens that I want to send you. So I think it is the meaning of front running attack. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, so they're taking advantage of, like, within Ethereum, the availability of how much gas you're willing to pay for your transaction decides in what order your transaction is processed. So it's not like a first in, first out kind of process. In which case you can take advantage, like somebody just mentioned, if I have an approval from Zia Saab that I have an allowance of 1,000 Ethereum or 1,000 tokens, and then I request that, can you actually change it to 1,500? When he had initially allowed me 1,000, and the time when the 1,500 is officially recorded and that transaction takes place, I can go in between those two transactions, claim the 1,000, and then once the 1,500 is allowed, claim the 1,500 as well. So I'll have a total of 2,500 instead of the 1,500 I was actually meant to be able to collect.
Very nicely said. Anybody wants to add anything?
So what is the right way of doing it? First, we remove that allowance of 1,000 and then we add 1,500?
Yeah, something like that.
You can do that. You can zero it and then add 1,500, or you can do the increment or decrement. There's those advanced functions.
Let's move forward. They have given it. Let's move forward. We have already discussed this. Transfer from. Could you just basically review it, Adil.
Yeah, we can quickly look at this. So it takes in 3 parameters, looks at the address where you're sending or transferring from, address where you're sending to, and then the value of how many tokens. It's a public token. It returns a public function, sorry. It returns a true or false at the end of it. Here it's doing 3 checks before it continues. Number 1, if the value of if the balance in the from address greater than the value of the value being sent, then you can continue. If the what is this one allowed from?
Because it's
if you have the allowance, if you're allowed to send how much you're sending, and then you're not burning the tokens, and then at the end it's subtracting. Again, this is the safe math library. We don't need that. Going to deduct from the starting address, adding to the receiving address, adjusting the allowance amount. This is the mapping, the allowance mapping being adjusted. And then at the end, triggering that a transfer event to notify everybody that the transfer is completed.
Yes.
Actually, sir, I have a question that what is an allowed argument? Like underscore from is the standard address?
This one, this is the address where the transfer is happening from. Yeah.
Actually on address, I am sending something to my friend, so this is my address, my token address.
This is the address that has given the allowance.
For example, can you give me example, please?
So if I have given you an allowance and you're trying to send to Zia Saab, then this will be my wallet address and this will be your wallet address.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Also, I have a question regarding the safe math library. So I learned that we use safe math to overcome the integer overflow errors in solidity. So why we are not using it now, or why don't?
There was at that time there was a bug in the virtual machine. Now it has been corrected.
Okay. Thanks.
Let's move forward. This is a 2-step process. First, you approve it, and then the second thing is saying always when you transfer or transfer from, always put it in and require if you are using it in the contract. So that if it fails, it basically doesn't cost you any and no side effects. We have already covered the allowance function. Balance of total supply function. Events, transfer event, allowance, approval event. We already covered it. And optional functions. Who is going to tell me what is this? The last question, decimals. What does it?
I think decimal means how much our token is divisible. So, for example, if I want my token to be divisible to the 18 decimal places, so I will keep the value as 18. So in this way.
Anybody else? Adil?
Yeah, this is the fungibility. I think the default people are recommending are the 18 divisible decimal. So stay with that.
Yes. Basically, it's saying that, for example, you are saying that because in the values are always in unsigned integers. Right now, Solidity does not support any floating point numbers. So therefore, what we do is basically store it in the lowest denominator. For example, in rupees and pesos, we will store it in pesos, and so on. So therefore, the smallest currency, we'll store it, the smallest value possible, we'll store that, and basically then we'll go from there. That's what he's saying. What is the smallest one? Anybody else? Any questions before we close the class? Any questions? Okay, guys.
Actually, sir, I don't have any question in today's
Or comments. You can also give a comment.
Sure, sir. Sir, actually, I want to ask that from where should I start as a beginner, because today is my first class for blockchain.
We have.
I already know.
Just go and go to Google Penacloud Bootcamp 2021. You will get all the link. Penacloud
Yes,
Bootcamp 2021.
Yes, sir. I am already the student, and now I'm asking about book. So should I start from chapter 1?
All the videos are there. I think it will not take. Just follow all the Ethereum. I think we have 9 up to now, recorded 9 classes. So therefore, you just have to spend 10, 12 hours just watching them, and you will be up to date.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your efforts. May
Thank
Allah
you,
bless
sir.
you, and you people are doing really wonderful job. You are putting so much, too much effort, sir. Jazakallah.
Why you are afraid to say that, sir? We love you, sir. Why you are afraid, bro?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
We love you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Very nice.
Thank you, sir.
Bye bye.
Allah bless you. Good health.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.